Gaming laptops are typically a bit rough. They're either too big, too bulky, or honestly, just plain ugly. If there was any gaming laptop I could see fitting into my life, it would be this one. This is the ROG Zephyrus G16 4070 model, and while nothing is perfect, oh boy is it good. The ASUS ROG G16 did shock me in a lot of ways. I was fully expecting the typical heavy, bulky, ugly gaming laptop that I purchased again and again, but this time was different. I've even tried 14-inch gaming laptops before, but they were honestly a bit too small to actually get real gaming or productivity done with, even though my MacBook Air is 13.6 inches, so something's not adding up there. Speaking of MacBooks, I am a current MacBook user day to day, but there's one thing that MacBooks just can't do, and that is game. Now, Apple has been trying, but it's not getting to where it needs to be, and there's still a lot of games that just depend on running Windows or even Linux nowadays. What the G16 does well is it balances a larger screen, larger trackpad, great speakers, and a good-looking design in my opinion, all with a fairly lightweight laptop when you consider it is essentially a 16-inch gaming laptop. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't have its flaws. No matter how many times gaming laptop manufacturers try to defy the laws of physics, thin laptop equals hot and hot equals loud. I think that was Newton's second law or something. Regardless, I've been using this laptop for a little over 2 months now, and I want to go through what I liked, what I don't like, and what I think could be better. Let's kick off with what I liked, starting with the look and feel. I think out of every gaming laptop I've used, this is the best looking one and by far the sleekest. I've tried other brands' lineups, and while some are great in their own ways, when talking about the sleekness and look, this one takes the cake. ASUS managed to pack all of this hardware and great functionality while also keeping a 16-inch gaming laptop relatively lightweight at 4 pounds or 1.8 kilos. Now, to be fair, when you do throw in the charger that this laptop comes with, the weight does go up to about 5.3 pounds or 2.3 kilos, so it does get a little bit heavy at that point. But you probably always aren't carrying that charging brick depending on what you're doing in that day, since this does have USB-C charging up to about 100 watts. Now, I wouldn't game on USB-C, but in a pinch, if you need to charge up your laptop or do some really light gaming, it could get you by. The G16 is also just easy to bring around because of this weight. I often can pick it up by the corner and move it around pretty easily, and I'm not too bothered by the weight. When it comes to the actual look of it, I do have some thoughts about the gamery aesthetic of the font and the slash. Now, the slash honestly does look kind of cool on the white model, but on the gray model, I'm not really feeling it. Now, the G16 I have here with the 4070 does cap at about 115 watts of total TGP. Reviews have shown that the RTX 4060 and 4070 laptop chips do sort of hit a ceiling at around 100 watts, so the 115 watts here is the best performance you're realistically going to get out of a 4070 chip. Now, I don't want to dive into benchmarks because, in my opinion, as long as games look and feel good on this laptop, I really have no issues about just lowering the graphics even a little bit to get the right performance out of this device. Realistically though, with a 4070, we should be running most games at native res at 1600p with relatively high graphics. In my experience on this laptop, I'm able to play any game I want, albeit with some fan noise, and have never felt like the laptop wasn't capable of running it. Word of advice though, you do need to chalk up the laptop with a little bit of a riser of some sort, because the laptop will start choking itself out if it's sitting flat on a desk. The last thing I want to touch on for pros is the speakers. I think for some reason, almost every Windows laptop that I've used has had terrible webcams and terrible speakers. And I think there's some conglomerate that's forcing all of these Windows laptops to have these terrible specs. But the G16 is really good. I'll quickly show the webcam and the speaker comparison between the G16 and my M3 MacBook Air. So this is the webcam and microphone quality out of the ROG Zephyrus G16. And this is the camera and microphone quality from my M3 MacBook Air. Let's go on to the speaker comparison. All right, now let's move on to the fun part, which is the negatives. First up, battery life. While the battery life on the G16 isn't terrible, it's definitely not great. You get around 8 to 9 hours of normal use with the GPU off, but with the GPU on, it's about 3 to 4 hours, which drops to about 2 or sub 2 when gaming. Now, I think that in comparison to other gaming laptops, this ROG G16 is actually really good in terms of its battery life. While battery anxiety is definitely a real thing, I don't really get too much battery anxiety unless I'm actually gaming or running in editing software or rendering a video, but in that case, I'll probably plug this thing in anyway. What this isn't though, is it's not a laptop that I would just go on my day without bringing a charger with me. You definitely do still need a charger to keep this guy powered up, but in days like that, you could just use a USB-C charger, 100 watt, 65 watts. Really any wattage USB-C works on the Zephyrus line, which is something that has plagued Lenovo's line for so long now. Next, let's talk about Windows. I've always been more of a Mac user, and part of that is because I find macOS to be more streamlined and overall less clunky. Windows, on the other hand, can often feel like it's trying to do too much. There's usually a lot of bloatware, constant pop-ups asking for irrelevant things, and the amount of things you need to tweak, which, while a good thing, can be overwhelming when you really just want to get on your laptop and either do some work or just play some games. Windows has made strides in recent years of making it a bit more usable and user-friendly, but there's still that inherent clunkiness that I just don't get with macOS. To be fair, this is only a con for me because I come from a Mac laptop. If you're coming from another Windows laptop or reviews Windows just exclusively your whole life, you probably won't have any of these issues I'm talking about. I was an avid Windows user. I used a gaming PC for as long as I can remember, but on a laptop, it's just a little bit more annoying to have to deal with. That said, Windows is the platform for gaming. The wide range of games available and the better hardware support are undeniable advantages. But for day-to-day use, especially for someone like me who's used to the simplicity of macOS, the transition to Windows for productivity and for work has just been a little bit jarring. Lastly, the fan noise and the heat. Now, I'm pretty sensitive to fan noise, and while the G16's fans aren't the worst I've heard by any means, they are definitely noticeable when you're gaming. During normal tasks or just relatively light use, I think the fans are completely off. Even now, I think they're completely off, just kind of sitting here idle. But once you fire up a game or once you start a video render, once you start doing anything GPU or CPU intensive, you will definitely hear those fans kick on. It's not a deal breaker, and this is actually one of the better fan noise laptops that I've had, but it is something to consider, especially if you're in a quiet room or you're in class or in a lecture or something like that. Now, fan noise is one part, the heat is another issue. Even with the GPU sitting at idle, the laptop does just feel a little bit warm, just honestly doing nothing. This isn't too surprising given its slim profile, as Newton's second law mentioned before, but it can be a bit annoying if you're using it on your lap or in bed. An extended use can make the bottom quite warm, making it less comfortable to use if you're not sitting just on a desk with the back propped up or on a cooling pad. Despite these drawbacks, the performance that you get with such a thin, light, portable 16-inch gaming laptop is just leaps and bounds ahead of the competition. I'm willing to take the trade-offs with a little bit of heat and a little bit of fan noise, considering this is running really hardcore specs, and take the trade-off for such a portable, lightweight laptop. Now, there's two quick things I want to note that I've seen other people talk about, and I've definitely noticed them myself. The hinge wobble, when you just kind of float this thing around, not a deal breaker, but it is something that is noticeable. And the fact that this has 16 gigabytes of RAM. The RAM issue to me, not so much of an issue. My Mac has 8 gigs and I'm still kind of getting by on that. For a gaming laptop, I think 16 gigs is still fine. I would have loved to see 32 gig, at least on the 4070 model, be the base, but I'm not dissatisfied with the 16 gig model. All right, so let's wrap this up with a few closing thoughts. The ASUS ROG Zephyrus G16 4070 model is a fantastic gaming laptop. It's got the looks, the performance, and despite a few minor flaws, it's honestly a joy to use. If you're in the market for a new gaming laptop in 2024, this should definitely be on your radar. And if you're tired of gaming laptops that look like they were designed in 2005, this honestly is such a breath of fresh air considering all the other laptops in the space right now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving the video a like and consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.